million. So now pretty soon we're getting up to interesting dollars here. Now let me move some zeros for you. The class size amendment to the Constitution, which was defeated in Northwest Florida, was passed east and south of here. And there were probably some people who had good reasons for passing it, restricting class size, hiring more teachers, building more classrooms. We've spent $13.4 billion on the class size amendment since it was imposed on the people of Florida in 2002. In 2010, we're going to go to the last phase. And that's where no class in no school anywhere in Florida can exceed a hard cap on any day of the year. Totally inflexible. That's going to cost, according to the Department of Education, another $1.5 billion a year in recurring expenses. And we've got school board members in this room who've already come to me publicly and privately and said, you know, regardless of the advantages or disadvantages of class size, we now in this economy are in danger of losing some core values and some core programs in our schools. Give us a little relief from class size. The legislature can't. The people of Florida amended the Constitution. So I'm sponsoring legislation to place before the people of Florida a chance to sanity check the class size amendment, to modify it, to keep it at the school average, but to allow educators locally some common sense flexibility to make sure that in March we don't have to hire a teacher when the 19th kid shows up. We don't have to hire a teacher we didn't want to hire in July and August. Nobody wanted to hire that teacher. We don't have to haul in a portable, split a class, and send people out to the back of the campus, just in order that we can hire more teachers and build more classrooms for, by the way, a declining enrollment. We have 40,000 fewer students in Florida than we had 2 years ago. So, if we can get the legislature to agree to put this in front of you, you will have an opportunity to bring some common sense to class size in the state of Florida, and that'll save $1.5 billion a year, and now we're talking about interesting money. Why do we do this? Not just because Gene Norman is right about recessions revealing what audits don't, or low water revealing the rocks and garbage that should have been picked up anyway, but because in Tallahassee now you're going to start to hear the drumbeat for tax increases. For people who say when revenues go down, what we need to do is tax people more. That the real answer for small businesses that are trying to survive, trying to decide this week whether they ought to lay off somebody or have to lay somebody off, that the answer for them is for government to take more of their money. The answer for the family that's trying to hold on to its home is to raise taxes on that family. There are people who sincerely and honestly believe that. Well, I'll tell you what people like Alan Vance believe. J.D. Alexander, a great friend of yours who chairs the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate, I'll tell you what I believe. And that is that government does not have the moral authority to ask you to raise your taxes until we have scrubbed the inside of the budget and scrubbed it so that we can look you in the eye and say that there's not Medicaid fraud and abuse going on, that there isn't double dipping and triple dipping going on, that there isn't welfare for politicians taking money that ought to be going to schools and to people who are sick in nursing homes. And we haven't done our job yet. Hold us to the test of doing that job before you entertain the notion of taking more money out of your pocket for government. And that's why the James Madison Institute is so valuable. It's just as Speaker Vance said. As we're in the middle of the firefight in Tallahassee, and, you know, the statewide press are hammering us that we're heartless and cruel and mean-spirited and we don't understand, the voice of the James Madison Institute rises above that cacophony. The James Madison Institute is, in my view, a beacon that shines with real truth and real facts. Admiral Ricko by the North Star and not by the lights of passing ships. And in my view, the James Madison Institute is the North Star. It's the beacon light of fixed principles. I call on them for advice. We rely on them for sanity checks on legislation. The first people I came to when I was appointed to chair the Select Committee on the Economy was the James Madison Institute, and said, help me understand the economic policies that we ought to advocate. We expect them to raise the alarm when freedom is being diluted and when free markets are threatened. So there's plenty of work to do in Tallahassee. But the best work and the hardest work and the most important work is the work that you do every day. To try in every way you can to start a business, to make an idea work, to create a job, to advance prosperity in your own communities. Now, I'm not a Pollyanna like some people in high office in Florida appear to be, but I do believe that if we keep our eye on those fixed principles, and if we take the hard decisions, politically unpopular though they may be, that someday we'll get through this storm. Not because somebody in Washington showered us with money, but because we dug into our own reserves of grit and high principle and moral authority. And then we'll have better schools, and better jobs, and a better community, and a better Florida. Thank you.
The senator has agreed to take some questions from the floor. We've got a few minutes for one. Senator, you can bring your tea up here. We'll fill it back up for you.
Speaker Benz will take the hard questions. I will take the others. Yes, sir.
Senator, I want to tell you how we can get 100,000 new jobs in Florida immediately. There's a socialistic insurance company called Citizens. If we'll open the door to 1,000 new companies coming in with the free enterprise system and allowing them to set their own rates, don't tell them what to charge, just let them fight it out, then each of those companies will probably hire 100 new agents and 100 new employees. You'll have 200,000 new employees by simply getting rid of Citizens.
Well, and you know, I certainly don't want to put my good friend who's a State Farm agent who's here in the audience on the spot, but, you know, we want to make sure he's got a job. So, the essential. Thank you very much. That's a very good point. And he rises to his own defense. Other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Senator, a hat that I wear in Santa Rosa County is chairman of the Economic Development Group over there. And you may already know about this, but transparency is wonderful. I practice it every day in my governmental sector. But now the people's governor has decided through his Open Government Committee task force that in the economic development circles, where you have a business come in and says to you, you're competing with 3 or 4 other sites, and you better keep it quiet, and we're looking in your county, and we want to meet with 3 or 4 key individuals to talk about coming here with new jobs. But the governor's office is now saying we're going to be open to sunshine laws. And all of a sudden, we can't do that closed-door meeting anymore with 3 or 4 key people on our board because it's going to violate the sunshine. That's what he's coming out with.
Well, I'll tell you, Ed, again, let's talk about moral authority. Until the state government puts its own checkbook online so that we reveal to you what we're doing, I don't think we should be telling economic development councils what they ought to do. Now, I will tell you this, and I say this with all respect. It helps when a public official has met a payroll on Friday. It helps when a public official has signed the front side of a paycheck and had to make a business deal, had to sit and sweat in front of a banker, had to find investors, had to find customers. A very small minority of the members of the Florida legislature have ever had those experiences. They may have read about them, somebody may have told them about them, they might have heard testimony about them, but they've never had it. And honestly, and I say this with the greatest respect, there aren't too many people in the governor's office who've had those experiences. Some have, not too many. In my view, you can't put together a business deal, you can't negotiate and compete with somebody somewhere else unless you can have some confidentiality. I'll tell you why. I mean, I've been a guy